Let me ask you a question. Have you ever left work completely exhausted? Not because the work was hard, but because everything around the work was. The meeting where you had to prove again that you knew what you were talking about. A conversation where you carefully measured every word so you would not sound too aggressive or not assertive enough. Or the moment you watched somebody else get the credit for your idea. If you've experienced this, here's the reality. That exhaustion is not a personal weakness. It is a structural cost. When high-performing women feel drained despite doing excellent work, it's often because they are paying for things others don't have to pay for, emotionally, mentally, strategically. What you're experiencing has a name. I call it the advancement tax. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to recognize when you're paying it, how to calculate your personal rates, and how to start reducing it without working harder or burning out. I'm Dr. Betty, founder of Rise with Betty, and for over a decade, I've worked with professional women across West Africa and beyond who are doing everything right and feel stuck. So here's what most advice gets wrong. The problem is not effort. The problem is that you're losing 30 to 40% of your professional energy managing perception before you even get to performance. Let's break it down. So what exactly is advancement tax? The advancement tax is that invisible energy cost of navigating workplace dynamics that were never designed with you in mind. It's energy your colleagues are free to invest in strategic career positioning while you spend yours on managing perception, proving competence, and navigating biases. So let me make this concrete. Imagine you and a colleague both start the day with 100 units of professional energy. Your colleague who doesn't face the same cultural or gender dynamics can invest about 40 of those units in strategy, in building relationship with decision makers, working on high visibility projects, positioning for the next role. But you're spending 30 units just navigating, over preparing for meetings because your ideas will be questioned more closely. You're calculating your tone so you are not seen as too aggressive or not assertive enough. Mentally recovering from the microaggression in the hallway before you even got to sit down at your desk. By the time the day really starts, you're left with 10 units for strategic positioning. He has 40, you have 10. And when this happens day after day, over the weeks, months, and years, that gap compounds. And then comes the most frustrating part. You're told you're doing excellent work, but you're also told you're not advancing as fast. This is why the issue is not effort. It is that you're competing in the same race while carrying the weight no one else names. Now, to be clear, I did not invent the idea of invisible work cost. No, research from Catalyst calls it emotional tax, which is the constant energy drain of being on guard. Dr. Amado Padilla's work on cultural taxation documents the extra unpaid labor often placed on minority professionals. What my framework does differently is connect this cost directly to career advancement and offer a systematic way to reduce it rather than asking women to simply become more resilient. Because resilience without strategy is just survival, and survival is not the same as advancement. So through my work with hundreds of professional women, I've identified 5 distinct forms of advancement tax. Most women are not paying just one. They are paying 2 or 3 at the same time, which is why the drain feels constant. So let me walk you through each one. The form 1 is called the credibility gap tax, which takes about 15 to 25% of mental energy. This is the cost of repeatedly establishing competence that others are often granted automatically. So you know you're paying this tax when you're over preparing for meetings, not because you need to, but because you know your ideas will be scrutinized more closely. When you walk in with extra data, extra slides, extra evidence just to receive the same level of seriousness someone else gets by default. And this is not perception. Research by Hellman and her colleagues shows that women must provide more evidence of competence than men to be evaluated equally. That's not opinion, that's documented facts. So what's the second form? It's called the navigation tax, which takes about 10 to 20% of mental energy. This is cognitive load of constantly adjusting your behavior to avoid negative stereotypes, code switching, managing microaggressions in real time, calculating how to speak up without being labeled aggressive or difficult. It's the emotional labor of making everybody else comfortable while you're the one carrying the discomfort. The third form is called the visibility tax, which takes about 10 to 15% of mental energy. This tax shows up in likability competence paradox. You need visibility to advance, but too much visibility can trigger backlash. So you need to talk about your work, but self-promotion is often penalized differently for you than it is for your male colleagues. So you're constantly calibrating. How much is too much? Where does visibility become risk? That calculation costs energy. And the fourth form, which is called the sponsorship tax, takes about 5 to 15% of mental energy. This is the extra cost required to build assets that others receive organically. Here's the hard truth. You likely have mentors, people who offer advice. What you probably don't have is a sponsor, someone with power, someone who is actively advocating for you in rooms you're not. And without sponsorship, advancement slows, no matter how strong your performance is. The fifth form of advancement tax is called the authenticity tax. It takes about 15 to 25% of your mental energy. This one is heavy. It's the energy spent managing contradictory expectations about who you are allowed to be. Be yourself, but don't fit in. Be confident, but not threatening. Show leadership, but don't be aggressive. The feedback you receive is often internally contradictory, but makes it impossible to act on cleanly. And navigating that contradiction day after day is a tax. Now let's talk about what this actually costs and how much it's costing you. Not in exhaustion, but in money and in opportunity. If you're paying roughly a 30% advancement tax, here's what it means in practical terms. So for every 3 years of effort, you are effectively getting about 2 years of advancement. Not because you're underperforming, but because a portion of your energy is being diverted before it can be compounded, and over time that delay adds up. So the data on promotion timing shows that women facing high structural friction often experience a 2 or 3 year delay per level. Now let's do the math. If the salary difference between levels is, say, between $20,000 to $50,000 per year, and you lose 2 to 3 years at every level over a 20-year period, that's between $200,000 and $500,000 in lost earnings. And that's just a conservative estimate. It does not include the lost equity, it does not include the lost smaller bonuses, it does not include the reduced retirement contribution, and it does not include the compounding effect of starting from every future raise from a lower base. So it's not just about feeling tired, it's not about confidence or mindset. It's about real money being left on the table while you're being told to lean in harder to a system that is already charging you more to participate. So here's what I want you to hear clearly. Knowing that you're paying this tax is not the same as being stuck with it. The advancement tax can be reduced, and not by pretending this dynamic doesn't exist, not by working twice as hard to overcome them, no, not by trying to outperform a system that is quietly draining you. No, the reduction happens when you recognize where you're paying the highest rates and then intentionally redirecting that energy towards strategy instead of survival. This is exactly what my RISE method is designed to do. So RISE stands for recognize, interpret, strategize, and elevate. So first you recognize, you calculate your personal advancement tax rate and identify which forms, that credibility, navigation, visibility, sponsorship, or authenticity, are costing you the most. Then you interpret. You stop guessing and start decoding how your workplace actually works, who holds the influence, how decisions are actually made, and what the unwritten rules are. Next, you strategize, not generic advice, but targeted moves designed to specifically reduce the forms of tax that you're paying. And then finally, you elevate. You implement these strategies and then begin to redirect energy away from constant navigation and towards visibility, positioning, and advancements. Women who apply this method consistently report significant reduction in their advancement tax, often by 50% or more within 90 days. Not because the system suddenly becomes fair, no, but because they stopped paying unnecessary premiums just to belong. So here is your first step. Before you can reduce your advancement tax, you need to know what you're paying. That's why I created a free tool called the Energy Audit. It's a 7-day tracking system with over 50 specific activities designed to show exactly where your mental energy is going and how much is being drained by each form of advancement tax. By the end of the week, you will have your personal advancement tax rates with a clear view of which taxes are costing you the most. You can download it for free at risewithbetsy.com. The link is also in the description. And if you're ready to go deeper, if you want to actually implement the strategies for reducing each tax, I've written an entire book series on this, the Rise Career Advancement series. It covers performance reviews, promotions, and career transition with step-by-step tactics to cut your tax rates and redirect that energy towards real advancements. So this is your roadmap from exhaustion to strategy, from survival to advancements. I want to leave you with this thought. The system is not fair, but that doesn't mean that you're powerless. Understanding advancement tax is not about accepting it. It's about seeing it clearly so you can start navigating it strategically. You've already been doing the hard work. Now it's time to make sure that the work actually pays up. So if this video helped you think more clearly about your career, subscribe to this channel for honest conversation about growth, clarity, and navigating complex spaces. This is Rise with Bexy. Until next time, advance with clarity.